Hello.
Hi mate, you all right?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Yeah, not bad. Cheers, yeah. Cheers for agreeing to do this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Nice one, yeah. Um, yeah, whereabouts are you based in London?
I'm in Essex actually, but I'm like on the border of London, so yeah,
Okay,
I am technically outside London.
fair play. Were you from London originally?
Yeah, I'm from Chingford. It's kind of northeast London, it's near Walthamstow, if you know
Okay, right.
that. Yeah, that's where I grew up. But yeah, I've lived kind of all over the place since then.
But yeah, I'm right in thinking you're in Australia before Christmas as well. How was that?
Yeah, it was like November. It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was a good tour. The weather was a bit disappointing for Australia. It
Oh,
was
really?
like it was all right. Like it was warmer than the UK, obviously, but it kept raining everywhere we were going, which was a bit annoying. And we were doing like outdoor shows as well, quite a few
Yeah.
of the dates. So but yeah, the last few gigs we went to Asia for like 3 shows, and it was really hot there. So it's nice to get a bit of heat in November, December.
Yeah, yeah. Like you forget how long it's cold for over here, don't you? Just seems to drag on
Yeah,
for
yeah.
ages.
You're like, oh yeah, Christmas. It'll be spring soon. Oh wait, it's just getting colder.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find like is the festival thing bigger than it ever was now, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I remember when I was a teenager in the UK. Anyway, there was like two festivals. There was Glastonbury and Reading, and that was I'm sure there were other smaller things in places, but generally they were the kind of main two music festivals, and then it kind of grew and grew a little bit, and then suddenly it was like every weekend there's three festivals for like 4 or 5 months, and that's just the UK, and then that's kind of multiplied in various other countries. So yeah, it's like massively kind of exploded. It felt like over a period of like 10 years or so. Um, which was great. Kind of we were in quite good timing for that because it meant we had lots of opportunities to play in different places. So yeah, that worked out quite well.
Yeah, yeah, I guess there's be festivals all year round, depending where you go now, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, there's certainly like in America and Australia, we've done kind of ones, and yeah, I know there's like Lollapalooza and things in South America. So yeah, I'm sure there's probably something going on every weekend somewhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah. In South America, do talk to people who like say that's their maddest gigs or the maddest crowds? Is that what you found? Or not really.
So we haven't been there much at all, but we did play in Colombia once, and it was. I think it was technically the biggest show we ever did. It was this festival, and I think it was like 200,000 people
Wow.
or something ridiculous. It was just like this absurd sea of people, and I remember there was someone in a wheelchair crowd surfing. So, so yeah, I guess it does fit the criteria based on that experience.
Yeah, I suppose that's a sign when it's really gone a bit mental, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a while ago now.
Yes. All right, then we'll take it back a little bit. So I was reading, I was trawling through NME.com and
Mhm.
it said that you were a trance music DJ and were in an Ash tribute band before Bloc Party. Are either of those true?
Yeah, I guess they're technically true. I think like the DJing was more of a bedroom hobby. I wasn't a professional trance DJ at any point. I mean, I think I probably DJed at a couple of house parties when I was at university, but that would probably be the extent of that. Um, I mean, I did DJ later once we started doing Block Party, and there was for a few years in the kind of the early years of us, there was quite a scene for people from bands DJing at like after parties and things.
Yeah.
So so yeah, there was a period where I used to do that quite a lot, and I guess having some degree of DJ experience was somewhat beneficial for that. And then yeah, the Ash thing is very much true. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2010. I toured with them for, I think it was probably a year, maybe more, around about a year. Yeah, it was just meant to be a short, like, one-off thing. Because we just finished touring our third album then. And then I can't remember why, but it was kind of printed that we were going on a break. I guess 'cause that kind of thing was somewhat newsworthy in NME or whatever at that time. Um, so yeah, we were gonna be having a break for a couple of years, and the guys from Ash saw that. I'd met them once before actually at a festival, but yeah, they saw that, and I think because they knew that I was a fan of their music, they kind of asked if I would be up for doing some shows with them. So yeah, I went to I think we did went to Japan and did a show first, and then a couple of UK shows, and yeah, we all got on really well, and I was enjoying it, and they were enjoying it, and so I ended up kind of staying and doing like a full year of touring with them until kind of Bloc Party started being active again. So yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Quite a good way to spend a hiatus.
Yeah. I mean, it was like it was fairly surreal because they were like one of my favorite bands in like 1996, 97 when I was just getting into music and just learning guitar. I remember kind of sitting in my bedroom learning their songs, and then 10, 15 years later, I'm playing with them for a year. So it's like, the kind of thing you fantasize about as a teenager becoming reality. So yeah, it was a amazing experience, and still friends with them now, which is nice. They're very, very good group of lads.
Yeah, yeah. But were you in a tribute band, a Nash tribute band before
I was
Block
I was
Party?
that the oh, okay, sorry,
That's what
I
I read, but
misheard.
yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah, no, that was true as well. Um I mean, it was just a one-off thing we did. Me and a friend, we had our birthdays like a few days apart, and so we had a joint 18th birthday party, and we hired there was like it was a pub in Walthamstow, but they used to have kind of gigs and club nights there as well. So yeah, we hired that out, and we just wanted to do a gig, but we didn't have a band, and we loved Ash, so we got a couple of other friends who were fellow musicians and Ash fans, and yeah, we did a kind of one-off night of playing Ash songs. And there is technically a video of this, but
Right.
I've never actually seen it back. I know a friend of a friend says they still have it somewhere, and they transferred it to. I guess it would have been VHS at the time, and they transferred it to DVD. Um, but yeah, I don't know if this copy still exists, but yeah, I remember seeing them like 10 years ago or something, and they said they had it then, but I didn't get a copy, and probably for the best. It doesn't emerge, but it might be there somewhere.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see it on YouTube or something.
Yeah. No, yeah, I would be, I guess, kind of morbidly curious to see how terrible it was. But
So were you playing guitar from a young age then? Was that the thing?
yeah, I mean, like, not that young, I guess. Like, I think it was about 15 when I started. Yeah, it was kind of quite out of character for me to kind of want to do something like that. I was, yeah, I was never kind of drawn towards like musical instruments previously. Like, my mum made me have piano lessons when I was about 7 or something for a few months until I said, like, I hate this, I don't want to do it. Which in retrospect, like, I somewhat regret, because being that skilled at the piano would be nice. But I wasn't motivated by it at the time. So I think like, kind of forcing people to do something they don't enjoy isn't the best way to create a passion. Um, so yeah, then when I kind of, organically started getting into music and then kind of, rock or indie, whatever you want to call it at that point. Yeah, then I kind of said, oh, I actually want to learn the guitar and kind of asked my parents and I think they were like they were supportive but also slightly skeptical. They wouldn't buy me a guitar at first. They kind of rented a guitar to I guess to see if it would kind of be worthwhile pursuing. But yeah, unfortunately it was.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so it was around 15, and then I learned pretty quickly though. Once I kind of started, I became like completely obsessed, and I would just like every day after school, just if I'd just go up to my room and play for hours and hours and hours on end, just kind of practicing and learning songs from the bands I liked and trying to work things out. And yeah, so even though I guess I started, relatively late, maybe compared to other people, I kind of think I progressed quite quickly just from how obsessed I got.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously you're quite synonymous with pedals and effects. Like how quickly did that come in out of interest?
Yeah, that was fairly quick as well. You know, th two of the bands I was really inspired by at that time were Smashing Pumpkins and Radiohead, and a lot of what they were doing, I could kind of hear like the guitars are doing things, but I don't understand how they're doing them. Obviously at that point you didn't have the internet to kind of look things up. There was like an air of mystery to it. And so I had another friend who was kind of learning about the same time and also was into the same music. And so we kind of went down that wormhole together of like trying to figure out like how they were doing these things and how we could do them. Yeah, and the kind of, being teenagers, we couldn't afford much in terms of effect pedals. So, one of us would get something and we'd kind of share it and swap it and try and figure out how to do things and go into guitar shops and just kind of try and pick out things that looked interesting or sounded interesting. But yeah, like from quite an early point, like that became as much part of the kind of process of being a guitarist as the actual playing of the guitar. And I think, me and my friend, we felt somewhat isolated in that because there were quite a lot of people who played instruments and made music when we were that age, and lots of people starting bands, but no one seemed like overly fussed about that side of things, and so it felt like this little thing we were kind of going off and exploring ourselves. But yeah, no, it was from very early on. It was a big part of it.
Yeah, that's it. Because yeah, I was in a band that didn't go anywhere, and we just I think we had one pedal or something. And in hindsight, it's crazy because even one pedal can open up so many more opportunities or ideas with different sounds. So that's one thing I'd do
Yeah,
differently,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
yeah. No, definitely. I think and we were fortunate. I mean, I guess there was kind of less availability of things then, but yeah, kind of finding like the Boss delay pedals quite early on, and they have kind of like there's so much you could do with one pedal. So even though they were like really expensive relatively at the time, like I can't remember, like they were around like £100 or something, which was well, it's still a lot of money, but especially it was a lot of money in 1996 for a teenager.
Hmm.
But yeah, once we kind of got there, and it was like it felt like it was opening up a whole new world creatively of what you could do with the guitar versus like if I'm only going to get one pedal this year, and you've got a distortion pedal, it's like, yeah, that that's great, and it has a sound, but it's quite one dimensional in comparison. So yeah, it was quite good. We for us anyway that we did go down that path.
Yeah, yeah. And then am I right in thinking it was Reading Festival, 1999, where you met Kelly?
So like
Oh, you
there's
formed a band at that
various
point or something, yeah.
yeah, I can't remember the like actual chronology of things now. It's been so long, and um you know, you kind of talk about so many stories that happen that they become the reality. So I don't know what the actual reality is, but that was definitely one of the times that we first met. So I don't know if it was the first time, but we had like a big group of friends and kind of mutual friends that would all go to Reading Festival. And there was one guy, and because everyone lived in the kind of London Essex area, and this one guy would hire like a little bus, and everyone would give him like £10 or something, and like 50 of us would all go to Reading, and
Yeah,
it
we
would.
did the same with Leeds actually, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, and so there was a big crowd of us, and I guess you know not everyone knew each other. Um, so yeah, but yeah, there was that one of those years where we were both there together, and we kind of ended up spending like a lot of the festival together, like talking about music and stuff. But yeah, I can remember a couple of other times. I can remember seeing him at some house parties, and kind of talking and going off to play guitars together and things. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure which was first, but yeah, it was definitely one of them.
Yeah, yeah. And how quickly were you writing songs together after that?
It was pretty quick. So yeah, like this is a story I always tell where after one of those occasions that we met, you know, I was still living at home with my parents, and the phone rang, and you know, landline, you can't see who's calling, and he just asked for me, and I started speaking to Kelly, but I didn't know who it was. He didn't say who it was, and he started kind of saying that, you know, that he wanted to start a band with me, and was I interested, and so on, and I said yes, but I didn't know who it was. Like I didn't know who'd called me, and so I agreed to go to this band practice, but I didn't know who I was
Right.
meeting until I kind of got there. It's like, oh, it's you from Reading or the house party and stuff. Um, but yeah, that like that I guess that happened fairly soon after we met, and yeah, the intention from the offset was always to make our own music. We, you know, it wasn't to like play covers or kind of mess around. It was yeah, there was quite a drive behind it from the offset, and I think, you know, we started just writing songs together, just the two of us, and then looking for other people to get involved at the same time. And yeah, for a couple of years, that became like a kind of ongoing process of finding people and writing songs with them, and then someone would leave, and then finding someone new, and it was kind of, you know, one step forward, one step backwards repeatedly for I think it was like a couple of years until we actually had a stable enough lineup, and that we managed to kind of write an actual batch of songs, and then actually managed to start playing and so on. So yeah, I think, you know, we kind of got started quite quickly, but then the process of finding members was yeah, it was frustrating at times. I remember us both kind of getting quite frustrated by it when it felt like things were going quite well, and then someone would leave, especially drummers was kind of the most difficult part. I think we only went through a couple of bass players before we kind of met Gordon, and we kind of settled with him. But yeah, was a lot of drummers.
Yeah, fair play. And how old are you at this point?
I think, I guess when we first started, we were probably 18, I reckon, 17 and
Okay.
18, because I was definitely still living at home with my parents, because we were like rehearsing in my front room for a bit and rehearsing in the garage before we had drums. Um, so yeah, I definitely would have been 18, and yeah, yeah, and then I guess we didn't start kind of properly gigging, I guess like 2002. So I think, yeah, it would have been like 2021
Okay.
when we kind of actually started doing gigs and things.
So you were at college or anything? You just kind of fully focused on the band at that point?
So I ended up having like I did go to university, but I had a 2 year gap in between where we would, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that point other than kind of make music. So I was kind of, yeah, putting off life while
Mm.
we were trying to get the band working, and um, doing kind of part-time jobs and things. Yeah, it was quite weird circumstances when my parents split up, and so for a while, neither of them were kind of living in the house, and they were trying to sell it. So I was just kind of living rent free in the house for a
Right.
period, which kind of was good in that it meant I didn't have to get a full time job. So it kind of helped inadvertently facilitate the band. But yeah, that kind of ended, and then yeah, then I decided to go to university just for the exact same reason, because like if I knew if I got a full time job, it would be really difficult for us to keep working on the band. Um, and Kelly was going to university, and I think I think Gordon did work at that point, but I don't know. It seemed to. I don't even know. He wasn't full time in the band then. Um, but yeah, no. So I did go to university, and I was at university kind of when the band, kind of got signed, and it started rolling for us professionally.
Yeah, yeah, what did you study?
I studied sociology.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and like yeah, I went to university in London, just so I was still in London, because again,
Yeah, yeah.
if I went to university anywhere else, then it would have killed the band. So
Mm.
yeah, that was the kind of priority for me then. And like yeah, I think going to university was really beneficial, not from the academic perspective, um, just because it pushed back the pressures of real life, for want of a better phrase.
Mm.
And it meant we could be in London. Um, it meant I could move out properly and live in London, and live with other people. So it was certainly good in the kind of life skills sense. And it meant that we were kind of more in London as well, because previously we were living on the periphery of London. And
Okay, yeah.
now we were kind of living like much more central, and having more access to go to gigs regularly, and go to like club nights, and kind of meet people and have new musical experiences and inspiration and stuff. So yeah, and find drummers. So yeah, that kind of, yeah, then like 2 years of being at university was yeah, it was kind of a beneficial time for the band as well.
Yeah, yeah. Did you manage to finish your degree or not?
I didn't, so I got to like I was starting my dissertation in the final few months of,
Yeah,
of, of university, and we got offered a tour with supporting Graham Coxon from Blur,
right.
and yeah, it was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or I can't remember how long it was, but it was like, okay, if I do this tour, like I can't do my dissertation at the same time. So what are we going to do? And I picked the tour because that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so and I spoke to the university, and they said like, yeah, it's fine. Like you can come back and retake the year if your plans don't work out. So
Right.
there was
Bit of a backup plan there.
yeah, there was a backup plan if things didn't work out, but fortunately they did work out, and it yeah, from that point it kind of got rolling. So it was a good decision.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting when you talk about the parent side of things because I read that Kelly didn't tell his parents he was in a band until he got signed. Is that right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can't remember if he was living at home at the time because he was at university in London as well, and but I don't think he moved out. I think he was still living at home. Not 100% sure. He definitely didn't go to halls. I feel like he was still living at home. But yeah, I think we were all fairly kind of quiet about it, I guess, because there was nothing to really tell them
Mm.
at that point until it became like, this is my job now kind of discussion. Like, I think they're aware that you play guitar and so on. But once you're kind of 18 and an adult and living your own life, it's like it wasn't really a conversation to be had so much with your parents, and until there was something to actually show for it. When you're just going to rehearsals every week in a kind of grimy warehouse in Stratford, or recording demos on a dictaphone and stuff like that. There's like not much to tell them about your band. It's just like yeah. I think everyone was probably in a similar boat of that of like yeah, until this is a reality, like it's probably like a negative from their point of view. It's like a time sink and a money sink. So it's probably better keeping it to yourself.
Yeah, and I guess that's another bonus of being at university because you can just kind of cover it up. You don't
Yeah,
get asked too many
yeah, like
questions.
yeah. No, I think like yeah, I can't imagine our parents had much knowledge of it other than like when we told them. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember. Like, it's
Yeah, yeah.
over 20 years ago now, but yeah, I definitely, I guess, I would have had to have told my parents that I was dropping out of university.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a conversation, and I don't remember it being like overly controversial. I think my mum was a bit more frowning upon it, but I guess because I told them, this is what I want to do, and if it doesn't work out, then I can do the final year.
Hmm.
I think they were fairly understanding of it, and Kelly had finished university as well because he was like um, he although he's technically younger than me because I had the 2 years off. So yeah, he had finished university and was well, I think he was working at that point. So yeah, I guess he was a proper adult, slightly more than me.
And am I right in thinking you called the Angel range at first? Is that right?
Yeah, that was definitely one of our names. We had many names in those first few years. So I think Angel Range was probably the first name we had, and we actually did gigs and stuff. I think the other names probably were just band rehearsing names, but not existing. So yeah, I think Angel Range did gigs. Um, we were called Union as well. I think we did gigs under that name as well. Um, but yeah, and then there was various other ones before that that were probably terrible and weren't used. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all band names sounded rubbish until there's something
yeah,
behind it,
yeah,
I guess.
exactly. Smashing Pumpkins. So.
And yeah, talking to Toby L from Trash
Oh yeah,
Records,
yeah.
or
Hmm.
Transgressive, is it? Sorry.
Oh yeah,
Um,
they were Trash Aesthetics. I think they were called at first, and then it became Transgressive. I
yeah, yeah.
think. I think I'm remembering that
Yeah, I
correctly.
don't know if I remember that correctly either. But
Yeah, I think so.
he told us a funny story because he was saying that his dad spotted an advert that you guys put in the NME advertising for a drummer or a bassist,
Hmm.
and you listed your influences, and he was like, "Oh, these sound quite interesting." So he, he told Toby about it. I think it must be when you were Angel Range, and from that point on, they were interested. So were you getting interest quite early on from labels and stuff?
Not particularly. They were probably the only people at that stage. Because I mean, we at that stage, like we hadn't done a thing, like we hadn't put any music out or anything. We were still looking for a drummer. Um, so yeah, that's interesting that 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 was the kind of point where they noticed. But I guess they were in a similar boat to us. It was like, very young and trying to set something up themselves. I mean, the only other person we stumbled across was oh, Gordon Raphael, the producer who produced the Strokes. I can't remember how we crossed paths. I feel like it was probably at one of the club nights that Toby
Mm.
and that were putting on at the time. Um, so I think he actually saw us play and he kind of expressed an interest in working with us on for doing something. And we kind of set up this. We had someone we knew that kind of owned the studio, and we kind of arranged to meet Gordon Raphael there to like just like play in front of him and stuff. And the guy overslept, and so like he wasn't there to let us in the studio, and we couldn't get in, and we couldn't have this meeting with Gordon Raphael. And I remember we were like so kind of angry and devastated at the time. It's weird because I'm just remembering this now. I don't think I've ever told that story, but yeah. So like, and then kind of I think we kind of lost contact with him a bit, and it felt like a real missed opportunity for us. I think retrospectively it worked out better that we kind of ended up recording stuff ourselves and not having like an immediate association with someone who was relatively high profile at that time. Because he was just coming off like Stroke blowing up. So I think that like I don't think we were ready then because this was probably 2003 or something, I reckon, even 2002. So yeah, I think that worked out for the best. But yeah, so that early on, we no, we weren't getting much attention. Other than that, it was only when we started putting music out that kind of there was a bit of attention, and that and that was thanks to Toby and Transgressive because they were the ones that put out I think the very first release that we did was them, and it was kind of yeah, that was one of the pivotal moments, I guess, for us kind of starting to get attention.
Yeah, yeah. And I read conflicting things about the name, whether it was political or not. But can you shed any light on that?
The Bloc
Sorry,
Party.
becoming Bloc Party. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't as a group anyway. I think, we were trying to think of names and everyone was kind of putting ideas down. I think we had a thing where we all had to put 3 or 4 ideas on a piece of paper at rehearsal, and we'd pick the best one. And Gordon came up with Block Party, and that was the one everyone kind of found the least offensive and that we went with. So I like I liked it just from like an aesthetic point of view, like not for any meaning of it. Just the words together. I just thought the combination of words was good. Um, so everyone else might have had different reasons. I know like Gordon, he was a little bit older than us, and he had probably had at that point more political leanings than certainly than me. I don't want to speak for everyone. So there might have been an element of that from his perspective, but I don't think there was any overall intention for it to be particularly political. I think, yeah, I think it was just it probably originated from his kind of sphere of interest, and that was kind of the genesis of the idea rather than a particular statement.
Yeah, fair. And then in terms of like the lettering, it's obviously become like distinctive, and, like associated with the band. Where did that kind of come from?
Well, again, Gordon's getting the credit for that one. He was and is a graphic designer, so yeah, at that point he was kind of in charge of all those kind of aspects. Like he did, yeah, he picked the font for the band, and yeah, was involved in a lot of the kind of like the early artwork and things, and um, so yeah, that totally came from his mind, and everyone was happy with it, and yeah, and it's still there 20 years later.
Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, just back to songwriting and like just interested how say songs like Banquet would come together with that kind of like is it call and receive, do you call it?
Yeah,
Guitars. Like how yeah, how would
call and
ideas like that
response.
that's right, yeah, yeah. How would ideas like that come together type thing?
That one, I mean, oh, hang on. Oh, sorry, I thought someone at the door. Yeah, that one. I remember there was a couple of bands that we used to go and see kind of, when we were like trawling the pubs of Camden and so on at that time, and there was quite a lot of kind of cool, innovative guitar bands, um, and we would, I guess, because typically when you had two guitar players, a lot of bands would just be, oh, this one's the rhythm guitar and this one's the lead guitar, and we never went. That was never like our approach. Our approach was like always seeing, you know, how the guitars can interplay however you want them to, rather than one person does this, one person does that. I think, you know, because we were both, Kelly and I both kind of quite creative in how we approached our playing. So yeah, there was just like, you know, seeing how we can do that, and getting inspiration from other kind of bands and things we were seeing, and yeah, it was just kind of an idea that I think, you know, Kelly just started playing the chord part one day in rehearsals, and was just like yeah, like try just like filling in the gaps, and seeing it, and yeah, and it just came together quite quickly. The I guess like the guitar riff part of it came together quite quickly, and then the rest of the song evolved more gradually. I think like the drums were actually really different on the original version. How they kind of start at the beginning of the song, where it's all on the kind of toms and things, and it's quite like tribal and percussive. The whole song sounded like that originally, and then it was Paul Epworth, the producer in the studio, who kind of suggested like tightening it up once it kicked in and giving it more of the kind of four to the floor disco feel. So yeah, the song changed over the course of its life, but the initial guitar thing came together pretty quickly. And that's kind of always been the case, I think, for us when we're doing the guitar interplay things. Like I remember Helicopter was the same. Um, yeah, you know, he was just sitting there. Kelly was just sitting there playing his riff, and I just kind of came over and just started doing something on top of it, and that was that. We always seemed to have good chemistry on that front in terms of getting the guitars to work together.
Yeah, it is. So is it always quite a democratic process in the songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, it like obviously the songwriting process has changed, and the lineup has changed over the, you know, the course of Bloc Party, but certainly Um, from the early days, like yeah, there was always like everyone doing their own thing was always, you know, part of what Bloc Party was, and I think part of what created the sound was that everyone was had quite unique influences. Like we didn't all love the same bands. We liked some of the same bands, but we also liked a lot of different music, and everyone kind of brought that to the party, as it were. And sorry, and then
Nice.
um and yeah, and there was just kind of like yeah, just do your thing, and I guess there was like a trust in one another of like, everyone else is good at what they're doing and knows what they're doing, and you know and they seem to like what I'm doing and vice versa. So yeah, that always seemed to just be an organic part of the process for the songwriting.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think I saw a quote from Kelly saying a key thing was to like blend different genres. So like try and avoid like doing anything that sounded derivative of anything else type thing.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And yeah, it's funny, someone sent me on Instagram or something the other day. They'd like found the Angel Range website, and it kind of had our profiles on it. And yeah, and it had everyone's influences that we'd listed at the time, and yeah, they were like very different. I think, yeah, I mean that was a thing that I remember from the advert that you mentioned in NME about when we were looking for drummers, because I remember we would look every week as well at the adverts, because as much as we were advertising for musicians, there were musicians advertising their availability, and like 90% of the adverts would always be the same. Like it would always be like, oh, loves Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine, and it would all be the same. And we noticed it a lot with our kind of friends who were making music. Like everyone was into the same music, which makes sense on the face of it. Like you want to make music with the people that like similar music to you. Like, but yeah, I think that was just something that helped create our sound and was really beneficial. Was the fact that this is for people who are actually quite different to one another. There's the common threads, but the differences are what make the sound.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. And you mentioned NME, like obviously at the time you were starting to gig anyway, um, with the likes of the Strokes and Libertines kicking off. Were you kind of keen to go in a different direction to all that type thing, or were you interested in it?
Um, like some of it, yeah. Like I think the Strokes were definitely one of the bands that we all liked, or most of us certainly liked. Like, and I think it was good in that it was making guitar music kind of exciting again at that point, because there was a period where like the end of the 90s and the early 2000s where in the UK there either wasn't much new guitar music, or the guitar music that there was not very interesting. And yeah, kind of like dance music and electronic music was a lot more prominent. Um, which was fine because I liked that type of music as well. But because we were a guitar band, the fact that the guitar music scene was kind of being revitalized was yeah, it was a good thing. And I think um definitely the Strokes we all liked. The Libertines, like not as much. Like there was songs that I liked for sure, but yeah, I guess because they are more of I guess they had more of a traditional sound, like less experimental. Um, so that was less appealing for me anyway. But yeah, just the fact that it felt like something was happening, and we were kind of the right age and the right time for it was yeah, it made it a good time.
Yeah, yeah. And then one more about songwriting, because I'm just interested how
Mm.
the intro for like eating glass comes together. Is that just something almost messing about in the practice space type thing?
Yeah, it would have just been messing around with the pedals. Like it was something like yeah, soon like as we discussed earlier, as soon as we got effects pedals, and then that was a mentality that Kelly had as well. He kind of shared that interest in things. So yeah, I think we were always trying to see what kind of crazy sounds and effects we could come up with, and yeah, that I think there was almost like a friendly competitive nature to it, and that we were like trying to like impress one another, and with kind of the most wild sound that you could make a guitar do. So, but I think that's one of the good things I like about collaborating with someone, is that when you're kind of in the midst of doing something, like if you're playing something or if you're creating a sound, because you're actively working on it, you're not listening to it properly. So when someone else is in the room, they're just listening to it, and they can see the bigger picture of it. So if I was making that sound, I might just be like, that's a cool sound, and maybe store it away for future use. Whereas, Kelly's hearing me do it and can be like, yeah, that's cool. Like keep doing that, and Matt like start playing whatever, and that can be like the genesis of a song, rather than yeah, when you're on your own, it's just you maybe experimenting and seeing how things work. So yeah, I don't even know how I got to that, but but yeah, I guess like eating glass was one of those moments. I can't remember actually doing it at the time, but that was a lot of those processes. So I would imagine that was how that one began.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Love watching that one live. Like I've was watching you on Jules Holland recently, and I posted the helicopter video on Twitter, and it went berserk.
Oh yeah.
Got like 1.2 million views, and people are loving it. I think was it on a FIFA game at one point or something?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was like FIFA 505, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, because yeah, no, I've always, especially that period, always had lots of people, telling us that they discovered us through the FIFA games. We
Okay,
had
right.
we had a few songs on the FIFA games over the years. So yeah, and especially at that time, I remember because I used to play FIFA, and it was like the soundtrack was quite a big thing
Yeah,
then.
it
It
was.
was
Yeah,
like yeah.
yeah. I think it's some people were saying it was on Guitar Hero as well, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure we had a few on there, and it was Tony Hawk's. We had
Yeah.
something on that as well. So yeah, we
That
had we
always
had
had a great track list, actually.
yeah.
Tony
No,
Hawk.
there was a few games where like yeah, the soundtracks were kind of really big parts of the scene at the time, which was cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was reading about Franz Ferdinand's involvement, where I think Kelly handed a note to Alex Kapranos, and that kind of propelled you onto radio or something.
That was there's two stories there, but yeah, that so one of them was yeah, we saw Alex Kapranos. He was at a gig that we were at, and yeah, we one or both of us would always kind of we had a demo then at that point, like a demo CD that we'd printed like 100 copies of, and we'd always carry it in case we bumped into anyone while we were out at gigs and clubs, and yeah, so Kelly kind of bumped into Alex Kapranos and gave him the demo, and yeah, fortunately, he bothered to listen to it and really liked it, and they invited us to support them. They were doing kind of this big showcase gig in London, like a collaboration thing with Domino Records, I think, and so yeah, that was kind of quite a notable gig for us. It was probably like the biggest gig we'd ever played at that point, and there was lots of kind of industry people and so on there. But then the radio one was when we bumped into Steve Lamacq at a gig from I guess it was Radio One at that time. Um, and yeah, and gave him the same demo, and he also kindly listened to it and played it on his radio show. So yeah, they both happened like in a very short space of time, those events. So it was kind of, yeah, two kind of key moments that helped us a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And then I read that as you were like getting an interest from labels and stuff, you were always keen not to sign to a major record label. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we it wasn't like it, it wasn't like a rule we had or anything. I think it was just a wariness we had of what signing to a major label would entail. Um, but we did have like multiple meetings with major labels at that time, so it wasn't something that we ruled out. Um, you know, we met someone from like Beggars Banquet. They were the first label to, or kind of major label to ever show any interest in us, and they offered us like a kind of deal straight away, and we were a bit kind of like blown away. But like the I don't think we didn't have management or anything in place at that point, and yeah, the deal was kind of, from our point of view, it was not very good. Not in terms of like, oh, loads of money. It was just it was a long deal, and the I mean there was barely any money either. Like, so it meant that we would all have to have full-time jobs and do the band.
Really? Wow.
I, yeah, I think like knowing what I know now, like look, it probably wouldn't have worked out that way, because you know being a musician, like a record label isn't the sole source of income. But we didn't know the industry very well at that point, and there's lots of unpredictable variables as well. But if we'd done that, and the band had still blown up, then because we would have been touring and so on, then yeah, we wouldn't have had full-time jobs. But from our point of view at that point, we had nothing, and they were asking kind of us to just make lots of albums for them with no income. So it just didn't seem like something to get tied into for a long period. And then we met, yeah, we met some other labels, and they were very kind of keen to have a lot of input in how the music sounded, and they had artists on their roster that they were kind of comparing us to, that we weren't particularly inspired by, should we say? And
Yeah.
it was quite apparent that if we worked with them, that they would have a lot of say over our creativity, which didn't appeal to us. And then it was when we met Wichita, and the the people that were running it were really nice, and we had good personal chemistry, and they were happy for us to do our own thing, and yeah, kind of have full creative control, which was the ideal situation from our point of view. So yeah, that was really like, that was the main driver behind our independence rather than any kind of moral objection to the concept of major labels. I think it was just the creative aspect.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose it's hard when you're young, but you've got to make sure you're not signing like the rights away to royalties and stuff like that, or do you get someone legal to look at stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean you do. So by the time we were signing that label and um we had management in place and so on then, so we had kind of people helping us with that side of things and starting to learn how things work. But yeah, certainly like yeah, and I kind of wonder, looking back at the like the first ever offer that we got, and we had no one else in place. If the I wonder if anyone would have even suggested that we have a solicitor look at it or not, or if they would have been happy for us to sign it, just kind of for youngsters, not really understanding things. So I guess that was probably a fairly common story, at least back then in the musical industry. I think I feel like there's probably a higher degree of savviness now, especially because you can research things a lot easier
Hmm.
than you could have. But yeah, no, it's kind of funny to wonder how things might have panned out.
Yeah, because I like hear about people. Then it sounds like record labels are so keen to sign the next big band that they would sign them and then they would just shelve albums, like not even release them sometimes or something.
Yeah, well, I think generally they were keen to. I mean, I guess they would try and sign bands to long deals
Hmm.
because then you like they had the control there, and it was like, okay, well, if things work out with this band, then we've got you for a long time. But but they didn't go the other way. Like you didn't have the option to like escape if you weren't happy. So yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be quite one-sided. I think it's probably less like that now.
Hmm. And then in terms of working with Paul Epworth, like how quickly did that come around? Did you like meet with different producers or not really?
Um, no, we didn't. I don't remember meeting with anyone else. Um, we might have done, but I can't remember because we'd only put out one song before we met Paul. The She's Hearing Voices transgressive vinyl, which we recorded ourselves. So and then I remember our manager, I think, introduced us to Paul as someone he kind of knew, and he was in the band then as well, Paul, and so he was only kind of getting started in production. But yeah, so we he kind of came to one of our gigs and we met him and chatted, and then we went to one of his gigs and watched him play. But yeah, I think he seemed really enthusiastic about working with us and what we were doing, which was lovely to hear from our point of view, and we got on well. But I don't think we had much like kind of insight as to what a producer does and who you should talk to and or anything really in that kind of world. There was we there was a lot of naivety, but he seemed like a good person, and we went and recorded Banquet with him, and it kind of came out brilliantly. So from that point onwards, we were really happy to kind of work with him again. I think it was mutual. So um but yeah, it was I guess it was fate almost that we kind of met each other at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And I was reading it's like quite a few people have said, working with producers on the first album becomes quite a formative experience in terms of things that you learn and everything. Is that the same with you and Paul Epworth?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, I mean, yeah, it's your first experience, so it's going to be formative like regardless of who it is. I think, I think we were fortunate that the person we had the first experience with was really good at what they were doing, I suppose, because you could have a very bad first experience with a producer. But yeah, I guess that whole world of kind of going into studios and all this kind of equipment that you've never encountered before it was quite alien to us. When we recorded the She's Hearing Voices, we literally recorded it in Kelly's flat. With like Matt doing it on his computer with a microphone. It was as lo-fi as you could get. So that was our experience really of recording. In fact, and see, now I'm saying that, I'm remembering, obviously Kelly wasn't living with his parents, like we discussed earlier, because he had a flat with um his friend Liz, who played in the band Lady Fuzz at the time. Um, so yeah, they were living. I think maybe there was one other person as well, but yeah, they were living in Bethnal Green around that time. So yeah, I guess going back right to the beginning of the conversation when we hadn't told our parents about being in the band, yeah, I guess obviously we were both living in London at that point. But yeah, producers. Yeah, no, I just remember it being, the recording we did with Matt and put out ourselves was, I think Matt did a great job with the tools we had at the time and made something that sounded really distinctive and exciting, which was like great. By then, I think when we met Paul Epworth and went into a studio with him, it was suddenly kind of taking things from one level to many levels above. It was like, wow, like we're actually making music that sounds like real music that you'd hear on the radio or on the CD or something. So yeah, it was very exciting at the time.
Yeah, it's, so when that comes out, are you kind of you like buzzing for it, like you're happy with what you've done, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think like I think because when we recorded with Paul, like yeah, it went so well. Then we went to go and do another single um with him. I think it was Little Thoughts, which isn't on the album other than in some other countries. But I think that was the next song we went to do with him, and it kind of went so well. We ended up recording like a bunch more songs just because it was going quite well in the studio. Um, yeah, and it just it felt like we found like a really good collaborator, and things were kind of going quite well. And then yeah, I guess when the banquet single was the first kind of proper single that we put out that came out like on a CD and had a video, albeit a very lo-fi video that we made ourselves. But yeah, that was kind of the time when it was like, so something's actually happening for us now. Like, this is becoming more than us rehearsing in a room and kind of desperately trying to get gigs in pubs in front of 5 people. So yeah, that was kind of the moment where it started to fire up, quite quickly.
Yeah. I was actually talking about videos. I was actually chatting to the guys that made the helicopter video yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like had them on the podcast. That was quite interesting. I think they said it was Gordon's idea for that video or something.
Oof,
Can't
I can't
remember.
remember. I think it was the one we went to like a house to film it.
Yeah,
I
like
think.
an abandoned house type vibe, I
Yeah,
thought, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had no idea where it was. I can't remember, and it's kind of black and white, some bits and stuff. But yeah, yeah, I remember doing that. I might have been Gordon's idea. I can't remember. I feel like at that point there was probably people involved
Mm.
with the process a bit more, and they might have been suggesting ideas. But yeah, it certainly could have been Gordon's idea. It wasn't mine.
And then like the cover of the album as well, obviously quite distinctive. Where do ideas like that come from?
So, I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, at that point, the kind of Gordon was in charge of the graphics and artistic elements. So, yeah, he designed the album cover. Um, I remember that like the name of the album was actually um, we'd just been to the American embassy to get visas to go to America to play for the first time. And we were yeah, you kind of you have to queue for hours and hours, and then we came out and everyone went to get some breakfast or lunch or something, and we were sitting in this cafe nearby, and I had a copy of New Scientist magazine with me for some reason, and that was the cover of the magazine was said Silent Alarm. It
Okay.
was it was an article about I think it was like earthquake detection in Japan or something, but but yeah, like everyone was kind of looking at the cover, and I guess we were in the process of making the album and having to name it at that point, and that name, that kind of phrase on the front of the magazine seemed to resonate with everyone, with Kelly especially. Um, yeah, and I'm pretty sure the name came before the graphic. I think once we'd settled on the name, I think that was kind of the inspiration for Gordon to then kind of come up with some ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. And then you're on the front cover of NME fairly quickly at that point. Um, and I saw on your Instagram you said you had a bit of a up and down relationship with NME. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Um, I mean, like they were really supportive of us the first kind of few years. Like once we started putting music out and touring, you know, they they featured us very prominently for a period. And yeah, like you said, we were on the cover and ended up being on multiple covers and doing like the NME tour. Um, so yeah, they were like very supportive for a period, but then I think it was at that time it was quite a typical enemy thing of you know they'll support the hot new acts for a period, but then someone else will come along and then they'll probably start making fun of the acts that they previously were quite supportive of. Um, yeah, and then I think there was a couple of occasions where you know they'd kind of run kind of silly but detrimental stories about us and stuff. So um, yeah, I think that was the extent of the up and down. I don't think there was anything like particularly malicious that happened that I can think of. But I think it was just that thing of like you know they were so supportive and the journalists would always be at the gigs and club nights and things and we'd hang out with them and then suddenly yeah they kind of weren't and we were the butt of the joke in things so but you know that was often the nature of the press in this country they kind of I think there's quite a British thing of not liking people to be too successful so
Yeah, got to
um
bring you up to put you down type of thing.
yeah. So, you know, it wasn't a big deal. I don't think they like had any major negative impact on us outside of that. But yeah, I guess it got to a point where quite the music press kind of shrunk. You know, there used to be Melody Maker and other things, and they kind of gradually disappeared. And you know, it got to a point where basically it was everything was the enemy, and that was it. So if you were kind of in favor of them, then it was great, and if you weren't, then you probably weren't getting much press for whatever you were doing. So yeah, that was really the extent of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess they would kind of almost become quite gossipy, didn't it? Like creating the beefs or trying to
Yeah,
create
yeah.
like ongoing arguments between like you, was it like stuff with Liam Gallagher and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, he made like a classic Liam Gallagher
Yeah, yeah.
derogatory comment about us at some point, and yeah, I think they probably milked it for a few weeks, getting responses, but no, that I think that's about the extent.
Yeah, because I was watching it's quite a funny video. Did you play the night they split up or something at the same festival?
We did. We announced it.
Yeah, I was
Um,
watching that video. It's quite funny.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was a festival in France. It was near Paris, and yeah, we were on, and they were meant to headline like after us. And I think our tour manager kind of came on between songs and whispered in Kelly's ear and kind of told him what had happened. I wonder why he did that. Thinking back, um, I think he probably knew that it might be something he would find amusing and want to
Yeah.
announce. So yeah, I can't think that there would have been any like logistical reason for doing it. So that was
Mm.
probably it. But yeah, and then kind of Kelly got to make a joke about it on stage. So yeah, it was somewhat fitting, I guess, after kind of beefing with them for a little bit to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that be the climax.
And you were playing the supersonic riff as a laugh as well, which was quite funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, there was yeah, there were lots of kind of moments of managing to play other people's songs for comedic effect at that time. So
Okay.
that was a good one.
Yes. Yeah, then back to the music.
Mhm.
At what point I was reading about 2 more years because saw Kelly said that was basically inspired from talking to likes of the Kaiser Chiefs and basically trying to write kind of a big hit. Is that right? Was that in between albums, basically? Yeah.
Yeah, it was after Silent Alarm. I can't remember when we actually wrote it because there was a weird thing where we wrote and recorded Silent Alarm. Like it was all finished in like the summer of 2004, but it didn't come out till I think it was January or February 2005. So then there was like this 7, 8 month period where we were still doing stuff before the album even came out, and so yeah, we kept touring and writing songs, and we were writing lots of new songs. So I can't remember if we'd written it before Silent Alarm even came out or not. But yeah, it was definitely I think yeah we did record it with Paul Epworth as well, but it was somewhere else. So yeah, it was later than that. But I don't know about the Kaiser Chiefs thing. I'm not aware of that conversation. But we did do the NME tour with the Kaiser Chiefs in like I think that was probably January 2005. I think that sounds about right. So I mean chronologically it adds up like that we did the tour with them and then wrote that song in that period. So yeah, it could be true, but I can't I can't actually vouch for it.
Yeah, I think Kelly said did end up being your biggest radio hit. I don't know what that's based on, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, I guess it depends on what metrics you want to pick. I don't know how you pick best radio hit unless there's some kind of list of plays. I don't know if
yeah,
that exists. But no, it did. It did well at the time. So
yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned like touring with the likes of the Kaiser Chiefs. Then, like, did you have a good relationship with other bands at the time?
I think like we had good relationships with the people that we encountered. Yeah, like the Kaiser Chiefs and everyone on that tour, the Enemy tours, Kaiser Chiefs and the Futureheads and the Killers. Yeah, and everyone kind of hung out and stuff. I think I think I found we were also fairly insular as a band. Like we would be the people we toured with, we would kind of have good relationships with. But outside of that, I don't think there was a great deal of socializing with other bands, and it never kind of it never felt like we were like, oh, we're part of this scene and we all live in this area and we go to the same pub and clubs and stuff. It never really felt like that with us. Like, yeah, like the bands, like we liked touring with your namesake, the Rakes, and
Yeah.
and we got on with them. So then, if we were touring somewhere else, we'd be like, "Oh, can the Rakes do the tour?" Like, so there was that extent of the relationship because we liked people, their music, and we liked them as people. But again, yeah, it was if you kind of cross paths organically at festivals or the NME Awards, you'd hang out with the people you know. But yeah, I think it was fairly rare that we were doing a lot outside of that, and I don't know. It was always hard to know how much of it was like was kind of created by the music press, or whatever. Like NME saying, "Oh, the new rave scene" or
Mm.
whatever. And it's like, okay, but are all these people actually like hanging out and doing stuff together? And maybe they are, but like, yeah, I don't know. But it kind of it didn't feel like that for us. I think I guess also a part of it was like we were so busy the first like I don't know 6 years I think of kind of once we started being a professional band from 2004, we were just like constantly on tour, so there wasn't really time to have much of a life back home. We were going. Fortunately, we were playing in other parts of the world a lot. We were going to America for long periods, Australia, and so on, and then doing like TV shows or radio sessions, and there was always something. It felt like there was kind of it never stopped. So and I know, yeah, we were really fortunate in that sense. But I know kind of lots of bands where they would do very well, maybe like in the UK, maybe a couple of other places, but it was quite limited. So I guess if you weren't as busy, maybe you did have more time to be kind of socializing with your contemporaries. But yeah, I think the fact that we were just gone for 6 years might have played a part in that.
No, yeah, it's interesting because I think that's what it's like the whole meet me in the bathroom thing.
Hmm.
Like the Strokes say they never felt part of a scene because for the same reason I think because they were just
Yeah,
like just out. They weren't in New York very much,
yeah, yeah.
was where the scene was taken off, kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
And you mentioned the TV shows, like like I say, some pretty classic performances. Like, what are your memories of playing them? Was that quite a cool experience or different experience?
I mean, I hated it, to be honest.
That's interesting.
Just because I found it terrifying, because it was like you've got one chance to get this right, and this moment is being captured. It was like the worst of both worlds, because if you're in the studio, okay, whatever you're doing is getting captured, but you keep doing it until it's right. Whereas when you're at well, I guess this is a bit different now, but when you were doing a gig, it was like it's somewhat transient, because you do the gig and it happens, and you go to the next gig. Obviously, everyone records everything now, so there is more evidence, but
Yeah.
it's still kind of different. Whereas, yeah, it was like if you're doing I'm trying to think what the TV shows were. I guess like CD UK or something. Um, if yeah, you're doing that, and you probably only had like one chance to get it, so it was really kind of stressful. And yeah, it was kind of an unfamiliar environment. It was like step back, it was like, oh, it's really cool. Like we're doing this, we're going to be on this, or especially like Jules Holland or something like that. It was
Mm.
like something that you grew up watching. Um, so like yeah, the thought of it was really good, but the reality of it, I didn't particularly like. Just I think I just found it very stressful at the time. So um, yeah, but and it's a shame because most of those things don't really exist now. So
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a shame that there aren't those kind of avenues for discovering music.
Yeah, especially the American ones like Letterman and stuff seem like a big deal.
Yeah, well, actually, they're the only ones that I guess do still exist. Like,
Mm.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. What did we do? We did James Corden show last year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in like in LA. So, yeah, typically when we go to America, we kind of usually end up doing one of the American shows.
Yeah, yeah.
And you do technically get a second chance if you mess it up as well. So
Right.
there is that. But yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, when we were younger, I think you kind of, I guess, having less confidence, you would maybe be a bit nervous to ask to do it again when there's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all these people working around you and stuff. So
No, it sounds a bit intense, yeah. Um, yeah, and you mentioned so you were like basically playing internationally quite quickly then after you got signed.
yeah, really quickly, which again, looking back, was very prudent from our management who encouraged it at the time. Yeah, before Silent Alarm was even out, we went to America and kind of did a show. I think we did like three shows, maybe like one in New York, one in Toronto in Canada, and one in LA. And then I think we went to Japan that year as well. Um, and yeah, we supported Interpol on tour, did a kind of European tour with them. And yeah, this was all 2004 before Silent Alarm was out, and then yeah, from that point onwards, we would. And actually, yeah, and I think we went to Australia that year as well. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, we kind of went everywhere just to get things rolling from a very early point, and then especially America, we used to go there many times a year. Kind of, we would do like 3 or 4 or 5 trips a year to the US. Um, and yeah, and all around Europe. Yeah, it was kind of from the get go. I think our management were really keen for us to kind of get to as many places as possible. Yeah, which was really beneficial because fortunately a lot of those places were um, very accepting of us and enthusiastic, and meant that we kind of established good fan bases in those places and get to go back.
Yeah, yeah. And is it just all enjoyment at that stage, or is it some of it quite tough to negotiate, maybe?
I think I think it varies. Like I know I enjoyed it a lot at the time because I was 21, 22, whatever, and I didn't have any responsibilities really. I barely even lived anywhere at that point. I'd kind of be staying with my grandparents or friends, whatever. So yeah, just kind of living on tour was very fun and exciting at that point. I know I think Kelly struggled with it a lot more. I don't, he didn't really like a lot of the attention, and obviously was the focal point of the attention. So I think, you know, for when you're in a band and you're not the front person, it's kind of easier to switch the lifestyle off if you want to. Like, if you just want to go out for the day on a day off, you can kind of walk around and have a normal day or a quiet day or whatever. Whereas he's probably more likely to kind of be recognized when out in the city that you're going to be performing in. and is probably more likely to be called upon to do press and things like that. So um, yeah, there's kind of different experiences, but I know Matt Tong. He certainly found it kind of exhausting, especially the further into kind of the career of Bloc Party that we got. So yeah, everyone had different experiences, but certainly like it was kind of your dream coming true
Hmm.
initially because this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to make music and then play this music and we were getting to do it and we were getting to do it very regularly and we were getting to do it in front of lots of people that were enthusiastic. So, what more could you ask for at that point?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting about Matt because I read that I think was it because of his physique that he ended up suffering with a collapsed lung at one point.
Yeah, so I think tall, slim men are more prone to lung collapsing from what I remember. Um, so yeah, and then we forgotten the name. Oh yeah, there's an American band, Panic at the Disco,
Yeah.
and yeah, so we were on tour with them in the US, and Matt was kind of playing American football with Gordon because when we did that tour, because they were massive then, and all the venues were kind of like sports arenas in the middle of nowhere, so we were just like hanging around in the day on a football field with nothing to do. So yeah, they were playing football, and I think just Gordon throwing the ball and the impact of it kind of hitting him full on in the chest was what caused his lung to
All
collapse.
right.
Which he didn't. None of us knew at the time, and he was kind of getting increasingly unwell as the day went, and still managed to do the gig, which is quite a hard gig to do with
Hmm.
the Bloc Party drums
Yeah,
of
yeah.
those songs at that time. So but yeah, and then kind of immediately had to be taken away in an ambulance after that gig, and yeah, and then we ended up having to cancel the rest of the tour.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was reading. And then speaking of injuries, I read that you were bitten by a lion at some point, is that right?
Yes, that was so yeah, that was when I was playing with Ash, and we were in South Africa, and we went to a lion sanctuary. And they were lion cubs. Not I wasn't bitten by an adult lion because I probably wouldn't be telling that story.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the cubs are still they're pretty strong for they're like the equivalent size of a dog. The lion cubs winning that fight. So yeah, one of them I was kind of getting near him to take a photo, and he got startled, and he kind of pounced on my chest, and he was kind of hanging off it for a minute, and then his kind of claws had got all caught up in my
Oh God.
clothes and stuff, and it was fine. I wasn't like laying in a pool of blood,
Mm.
but then yeah, I was kind of laughing about it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I do seem to be bleeding quite a lot. I think we probably need to do something about this.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's mad.
but no, it was quite a jovial moment rather than a terrifying moment.
Yeah, something to tell your kids about, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I've still got a claw mark down my hand.
All
So
right. And then I saw on the Instagram you referenced was it known as the blockhead, your haircut?
oh yeah, still clinging on. Yeah.
And you were quick to point out that it's actually changed a bit over the years, but was that like an NME thing? Did they coin that phrase?
I think they named it. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I know. Yeah, they did a silly kind of piece in the magazine one week where it was like the guide to getting the blockhead or something with kind of photos and tips and so on. So um, yeah, I'm pretty sure they get credit for coining the phrase.
Yeah, it's strong branding anyways for
Yeah, yeah,
recognizable.
exactly. I know. We probably should have marketed it more in retrospect.
Yeah. And then yeah,
Trademark.
just looking at the second and third album, so the second one you went with a different producer, Jackknife Lee, and then am I
Hmm.
right in thinking for the third one you combined first and second album producers like Paul Epworth and Jackknife Lee came together to produce that one? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that is correct.
So is that your kind
Um,
of idea?
I'm trying to remember whose idea it was. Um, yeah, I can't remember whose idea it was actually. It's quite an unusual thing to do, like kind of looking back at it now, and it wasn't. They weren't working together. They like we recorded kind of two albums basically. Like we recorded a bunch of songs with Jack Knife Lee and a bunch of songs with Paul Epworth,
Ah, okay.
and then yeah, like in different places at different times, and then put them together, and that made the album. Yeah, it wasn't them working together. So um, I can't remember why that ended up being the way we did things. I know Kelly really enjoyed working with Jack Knife Lee at the time when we made the second album, and I think he was keen to work with him again. Um, so I wonder, you know, if it was a way of accommodating everyone's desires. Maybe some of us wanted to work with Paul again. Um, but yeah, yeah, I remember it happening. I can't remember why it happened. Looking back, it seems a very strange decision. So I feel like it was probably a compromise of meeting everyone's desires of who they thought would be best to work with. That probably seems the most likely rationale for that decision.
Ah, okay. And then with the second album, I was reading that it leaked like quite a
Um,
lot. Is that right?
yeah, so yeah, that one because again, I think like with Silent Alarm, we finished the album because we'd written it like before Silent Alarm had even come out. We were writing that album, and
Ah, right.
um, so I don't think we recorded it till like 2006, I think it was. But yeah, again, there was going to be this long gap of um, when the album's finished and when it came out, and yeah, that was kind of the peak, like LimeWire was it
Mm,
era
yeah.
of people kind of figuring out you could download music and download it before it's even released. So yeah, we I mean like we were victims of it, but I think you know, it's hard to gauge how much impact it actually had. You know, it was
I suppose
a
it
well
can
received
create a little bit of a
album.
buzz in a way, can't it?
Yeah, I think the length of the leak was probably the detrimental aspect of it because it was so long. It
Ah,
wasn't
okay,
like,
right.
oh, this is coming out like in a week or so. It was like, oh, this isn't meant to be coming out for months. So I guess because it was quite long, it was kind of detracting from the impact of the plans that like we in the record label had, you know, because when you especially at that time it was like, you know, when we're putting out a new song, you can make quite a big fanfare behind it and kind of get the first play on whatever radio station and things like that. And it was like, oh wait, like thousands of people have already got the album, so these things are becoming less important, and is this going to affect sales and that kind of thing? So um, yeah, I guess it was just I think it was just frustrating because there was like a, a schedule and a plan for doing things, and then it leaking so long um, kind of meant that things had to be rushed, brought forward, and so on.
Hmm.
Um, so then, yeah, then with the third album, we kind of like released it suddenly as soon as it was finished with like kind of no like promotion or anything. Um, which yeah, I don't know, probably wasn't a, a best thing to do, looking back. But
Why would you say that?
um, I think it just like at that time, it felt like if you were kind of actively spending like a period promoting things, it did actually have an impact. Like it
Oh,
meant
okay, right.
you know that you could get on radio shows and plan because you know you can't just like well if you're of a certain level you can probably do what you want, but for where we were it was like you know if you wanted to get on Jules Holland or whatever, it's like these things kind of they had to be mapped out in advance.
Mm.
So because it was like suddenly, oh yeah, that's their album, that's out. You know, none of the kind of media are on board because they liked to have exclusivity
Right,
and
yeah.
so on. Where it was just like, yeah, sorry, album's out. Do you want to do something? So
Yeah, I quite like that.
um,
It's funny.
so yeah, but again, also like I don't think it was the end of the world either. Like you know, I guess it's one of those things you can't really gauge the impact, but um,
Yeah, because I imagine by that point you've got quite a big following anyway.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think you know if you know at that point because you've got an audience, if you're putting an album out, then enough people are going to take notice, and if it's good, then they're going to like it and continue to support you and tell other people. And if it's not, then you know it doesn't matter if you leaked it suddenly or you spent months promoting it before it comes out. I think you know the quality is what matters at that point. So yeah, I don't think it was the end of the world, but I guess I don't know. I think it felt it was a decision based on a reaction to the frustration of the previous one
Mm.
leaking rather than actually like this will be like a great thing to do. So but yeah, I don't not a disaster.
Yeah, yeah. And then a few different things that I saw, like you played Wembley Stadium for Live Earth. Was that a good experience?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it was like it was all kind of like quite brief and frantic, you know. I think yeah, we only played I think we did two songs, one or two songs, and it was yeah, it was all kind of lots of artists like piling through and doing the same thing, and so yeah, it was fairly chaotic, but you know we got to say that we played Wembley Stadium, so it's certainly a kind of nice bucket list thing to have done for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then was there some kind of hiatus? Like I was reading different things. It almost felt like it wasn't serious. Like I was getting made to be more serious than NME from what I was reading. Where like people were meeting up but without Kelly or something for rehearsals, and you might have to get a new lead singer at some point.
Okay, yeah, I think like that was probably the apex of the enemy rivalry.
Right.
Like we yeah we'd been on hiatus after the third album, and then we were starting to meet up to make the fourth album, and I can't remember if like someone like printed the photo of us or if we did it ourselves if on our own social media at that point, but yeah, we kind of we just like did it as a joke because Kelly wasn't in the photos. You know,
Hmm.
we made a joke about oh, you know, looking for a new singer or something, and the enemy like kind of took it seriously, like that we actually were, and so we thought it'd be funny not to correct them. And so they kind of ran with this story for a little bit that we were looking for a new singer, and then I think when it turned out that that wasn't the case, I think they were like a little annoyed that we'd done that. But you know, it wasn't like I don't think there was any intention on our part to like uh, anything like malicious. It was just
Yeah.
like a silly kind of early social media type thing. But
I mean,
yeah,
you
I
could
guess
tell it wasn't entirely serious when I was reading it. Because, like,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Kelly created a story where something He's like, I sat down at a cafe in New York, and the rest of the band just walked past and went to practice without me. He's like, obviously that's not serious.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it ended up getting kind of more traction than it probably deserved.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, that was kind of the extent of that.
So was it in that time, in that period where you formed a side project? Is that right? Pin me down, or was that
Um,
later on?
I think technically it was earlier. I think
Okay.
I think we started doing it because I met Milena, the singer. I think it was on that very first time we ever went to New York, or one of those early Bloc Party trips, like 2005. And so we started making music for fun quite early on. But yeah, it wasn't until yeah, it probably would have been in that hiatus, I guess makes sense that we actually had a period of time to you know, write a whole collection of songs and then record them and look into putting them out. So yeah, I reckon it was probably 2009, 2010, maybe that we kind of yeah actually released some music with that.
Yeah, yeah. So was that quite I don't know. Is it quite a nice to have a side project where you can just like mess around with different ideas type of thing?
Yeah, I think I mean yeah, I've always had other things on the go for like the whole time. I think that block parties existed. I guess um, it just I think I've always had quite a high level of creativity and lots of ideas. So whether it was just working with people I'd met and had good chemistry with, or just doing it on my own. There was kind of yeah, always I was always recording ideas on the road and accumulating things and seeing what could happen. So yeah, that's pretty much been an ongoing part of being a musician for kind of the whole time that block parties existed.
Yeah, yeah. And then get to the point where Gordon and Matt leave. So Kelly say if things hadn't changed, you probably wouldn't have carried on as a band. Do you think you needed a change at that point?
Um, I think, I think what he says is correct. I like, Matt. He when we took the first hiatus, I think he wasn't overly keen on continuing anyway. And we kind of met up, and he got convinced to give it another go. But yeah, I think for him, it was kind of reaching the end of how long he wanted to be doing it. So I think even though the leaving was quite abrupt, I think even if we'd finished the tour that we had at that point, which was only another month or so, that I don't think he would have wanted to continue anyway. So there would have come a conversation about, okay, are we all stopping, or are you leaving, or something. So yeah, I think it just got um mildly accelerated by the pressures of touring.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, Matt was everyone kind of looks back on him as like one of the best drummers of that period. Um, Difficult to replace, but I mean, Louise is amazing. I've only seen her on Instagram, but it's like, yeah, she blows you away with how good she is, type of thing.
Yeah, no, she's a brilliant drummer. So yeah, we've after our initial um years of desperately trying to find drummers, we then happened to come across two of the best drummers. So quite quite fortunate there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm just conscious of time, but
Hmm.
Kelly Clarkson, what do you make of that?
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's brilliant, wasn't it? To be fair, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
what
yeah.
a song choice as well. It's like not a particularly obvious one.
Yeah. No, it was, no. Yeah, I can't remember who sent me it, but yeah, no. When I saw that, I thought it was awesome. It was really cool that she did that. So yeah,
Yeah.
nice
They
to know
bought
she's a fan.
yeah. They bottled the pedal bit, which is a shame, but
Yeah. They yeah. My parts were somewhat absent, but other than that, I think it was a really good version.
And then, so you had some music that's been appearing on an anime series, is that right?
Yeah. It's a Japanese band called Five New Old. And yeah, I have a friend that works at their record label in Japan, and she kind of I can't remember how it came about, but she mentioned that they were kind of fans of Bloc Party and would be up for kind of working on something together. So yeah, we did a song together last year, and yeah, and it ended up kind of getting picked up to be the theme tune of this anime series. Yeah, and then this year, oh no, yeah, this year I guess technically, yeah, the season two of the program was came out, and they kind of asked if we were to do another song together for the new theme tune. So yeah, hopefully it goes for 10 seasons. And we keep that going. But no, it's great because yeah, I don't watch much anymore, but when I was younger, I used to love anime, um, kind of short films and stuff. So yeah, kind of having a song that we did get to be the theme tune is kind of yet another amazing bucket list achievement that's very cool.
Yeah, yes. And yeah, just like the Silent Alarm Tour stuff. Was it 2016 did you decide to do that? Like, what was the thinking behind that?
I think it was 20 probably 2018.
Ah, okay.
Um, Honestly, it was just something that was proposed to us, and we thought would be fun to do because we just finished. No, yeah, okay. So we put an album out with like the new lineup, and when we toured that, and then yeah, and then we kind of weren't sure what we were going to do, and there weren't really any plans to put any new music out at that point. And yeah, and someone just kind of came to us with the idea of playing kind of some silent alarm shows, and yeah, we didn't have any new music to record or put out or anything, so we thought it would be um, a nice thing to do. And I think also there was kind of the thought of getting playing those songs and being on tour together for a period might um, kind of bring about some creativity and desire to then go back into the studio and write some new songs and make another album, which is exactly what happened. So that worked out quite well. So, but yeah, it was just born of a desire of, I think, to kind of to play again together, really, than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're doing a similar type thing this summer, like a greatest hits that I saw at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it's just like a one-off thing. It's the only thing we're doing this year. Yeah, just kind of playing like songs from Silent Alarm and songs from all of the 20 years of Block Party, really. Just again, just thought it would be a nice thing. It kind of gets surreal when it's pointed out that we've been doing this for 20 years. So it's a long time
Hmm.
to have been doing it. So yeah, it seemed like a nice idea to do something to celebrate that, and to get some of the artists that we like to play with us as well. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. It's always kind of fun to play a lot of the songs from that era as well.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the venue? Is it a bit of a mad venue with like water in front of the stage or something? or is that a different one?
I have no idea. I haven't been there before. I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
I'll have a look after this because that sounds interesting. But no, no, no. Other than it being outdoors, I don't know the venue.
Ah, okay, fair play. And then you've got
I'll check it out.
you got another side project. I don't know if you mentioned this already. Nova Cub.
Yeah, I mean we're not doing much with it anymore, but kind of got slightly scuppered by COVID,
Ah, right,
unfortunately.
okay.
But yeah, kind of 2019, especially, we were yeah, we were doing quite a lot in that period, like putting out a lot of music and touring and so on. Yeah, that was with Louise
Mm.
on vocals rather than on drums,
Ah, right, okay.
and a couple of other friends. Um, yeah, we still put out because we wrote so many songs and then kind of got halted in our plans. So we still put out some songs occasionally, and she kind of took on the mantle of it, and sometimes does it. Louise does it on her own or with other people, but yeah, it kind of got a bit slowed down from where it was going, unfortunately.
All right. Cool. Well, I'll finish on two questions then. Apologies
Hmm.
to anyone that sent in a question, but just not gonna have time for it. So obviously a lot of high points you've had over the 20 years, but is there a high point from those early years, and is there anything you'd do differently?
Um, don't know. I mean, like do differently would be kind of like just boring, sensible things like I'd wear earplugs earlier because I didn't wear earplugs for the first few years, and I got a tinnitus,
Ah,
which I
okay,
have to
right.
live with now, which isn't too bad. Fortunately, it kind of started quite badly and then settled, which is very fortunate. But yeah, so I would do that differently and always suggest to other people to always wear earplugs.
And it's
Um,
interesting because I went to my mates. My mates have got a band, and I've not even been in a practice room for about 20 years or something. And I went to listen to them, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is loud. And like, it
yeah, yeah.
literally, it stayed with me for like a good couple of hours, just like the effect on my ears. So yeah, I can understand why I'd want
Hmm.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember it was like even just going to gigs as a teenager, like the the kind of ringing would last until like you went to bed, and then it would only be gone the next day.
Mm,
And like that's bad enough when you're going to however many gigs you go to a year, but when you're doing it every night for weeks on end,
yeah, yeah.
it's like obviously terrible for you. So and higher points. I mean, yeah, it's there's so many. It's hard to single out. Um, to single any out. Getting to go to all the places that we've been to multiple times as well is always a high point for me. You know, getting to go to Japan, especially because it was somewhere, kind of growing up loving parts of Japanese culture, was somewhere I always wanted to visit and didn't know that I ever would, and then getting to go there multiple times is definitely a high point. And playing like the festivals that we used to go to as teenagers, like Glastonbury and Reading and so on, kind of like things like that are high points. But yeah, there's definitely more high points than low points.
I reckon so. Yeah. All right. Cheers, Russell. That's been brilliant. Really appreciate your
Awesome,
time.
no worries. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'll let you get off to the school run.
Yeah, yeah, cool, no worries.